In this audio, I'm going to discuss the I-877 record of sworn statement in administrative proceedings issued by CBP, Custom Border and Protection, the immigration officials at the port of entry, such as an airport, when they call you in for secondary inspection. So here's the sort of overview. You show up at the airport, officer asks you a couple of questions. They're asking you then to go with them to a further back room, and they're now asking you a sequence of questions. It doesn't matter what triggered it, you're in this place. It could have been triggered because of what you said at the initial questioning. It could have been triggered because something is showing up on their security that may not have been there before. Maybe since your last entry to the United States, something has triggered. Maybe you have been arrested, convicted of something, overstayed, etc. Or it doesn't necessarily mean that you've done anything in your past. Maybe it was always there. Maybe there was always the underlying problem: past arrest, past conviction, overstay, unlawful employment. You just happened to fly under the radar, so to speak. I'm using the axiom that you're flying under the radar, that nobody noted it. It doesn't mean that it wasn't there. It was there. Your immigration history is very condensed and very convoluted. It just means that maybe when the officer was admitting you at the port of entry, they were not looking at your immigration history screen and didn't note it. Now it's flagging and you're being called into the back room, the secondary inspection. It could even be something that you said. Maybe there's nothing in your past. Maybe it's the here and now, the present, that you said something when they questioned you. Or, for example, maybe when they were reviewing your electronic devices, which they have the legal right to do and they will request it, they noted something. They can literally take your phone and in moments pull up your whole life. So now you're in the secondary inspection interview, and you are being asked a sequence of questions by the officer. I'm going to give you an example of the types of questions that I see over and over on the sworn statements, and you will see how detailed they are. Because what an officer is doing is they're not just asking you innocuous, vague, generalized questions. They're asking you specific questions multiple ways so that your answer is confirmed. In other words, that you can't go back at a later date and then say, oops, sorry, you misunderstood me, officer, or I didn't mean to say that. They are effectively binding your hands and your feet by the way they're asking you questions. They're trained to do this. Remember, CBP are protecting the US borders. They're dealing with a lot of fraud, and they are protecting people inside of the United States. So you best believe they know how to question you and how to interrogate you and how to make sure that they elicit information so you cannot come back at a later date and give some convoluted story that they misconstrued your words. So the way they're asking the questions are framed in a manner to nail you. And that's the best way of me describing it for you. So what I'm going to do in this audio is I'm going to go through the types of questions so you'll see how they set everything up. And then I'm going to advise you on what I believe you should be doing at the end of the statement, and then what you should not be doing once one of these has been issued. So it's very important because I've seen a huge uptick in sworn statements being issued by CBP, both when you're entering under visa waiver ESTA and under non-immigrant visas, temporary visas. Typically, when this is issued, you are denied admission into the United States. Your visa or visa waiver ESTA is also denied, cancelled, revoked. They're gone. And you may be triggering other issues that warrant a waiver. And if you listen to the audios that I've discussed waivers on, waivers cause huge problems because they are discretionary relief. It is up to the officer on whether they are going to approve you or not. They have the discretion. You've lost your power. So you never want to get into the scenario of a waiver being required if you can avoid it. So I'm going to go now through the types of questions that I hear, that I'm reading over and over on these sworn statements once people send them through to me. So the officer will start off at the top of the application and they will state something such as, I desire to take your sworn statement regarding For example, your application for admission into the United States. Now, before I go into the questions, I just want to make you understand something that is so consequential here. This is a sworn statement, and this is going to be used against you. You are memorializing information that could have a very damning impact on your future immigration. Typically, what happens is once these are issued, the officer will say to you in a very friendly, gregarious manner, "Oh, go on up to the consulate. They'll help you. They'll help you with your visa." And the person will go up. I hear this over and over, so I know they're doing it in a friendly manner because people will tell me, "Oh, they made me feel like there was they were trying to help me." Think about this critically. If they're trying to help you, why have they just denied your entry? If they're trying to help you, why is your visa gone? If they're trying to help you, why do you have no visa waiver? Why was it just cancelled on you? They're there to do a really important function, a role to protect the borders. And something about you and your case has triggered them warranting this sworn statement. And people go up to the consulate thinking that the consular officer is going to help them, and they're not going to help them either. Their job is not to help you. Their job is to process visas and to actually see, do you fulfill the requirements? And if you don't, they're going to deny you. And the problem is once you sign this sworn statement and it's all memorialized, then the consular officer is typically just reading this before you show up for your interview. And 9 times out of 10, they're going to deny you based on what they see on the sworn statement. And people are constantly finding themselves in that conundrum of CBP has denied their admission. They go up to the consulate. Now the consulate is denying them. You're probably doing all sorts of damage to your case at this point because you're saying things. You don't know what's being annotated. You don't know what the officers are putting down internally. And you now have denial after denial after denial. And to be clear, denials do not preclude you from filing another visa. You can go up the very next day if you want to. In fact, consular officers will tell you this. But every time you have a denial, you have a red flag against you. And you're making it more difficult to actually, in fact, get an approval. So they'll start off by telling you that this is a sworn statement. So you're put on notice about your application for admission into the United States. So I'm just going to read out what the questions an officer will typically ask. Do you read, write, and understand the English language? Are you comfortable in conducting this interview in the English language? Do you swear or affirm that all of the statements you are about to make are true and complete to the best of your knowledge? At this time, I am informing you that you are now under oath. Any statement you make must be given freely and voluntarily. Are you willing to answer my question at this time? Very clear language, right? Are you currently ill or do you have any medical conditions which United States Customs and Border Protection, CBP, should be aware of? Are you currently under the influence of drugs and or alcohol which would affect your ability to truthfully and correctly answer my questions? So what they've done now in those, 6 questions, they're telling you clearly, okay, so you've told me you understand, read and write English. You've told me that you have the capacity to understand the questions. You've told me that everything you're stating is the truth, and I'm telling you that this is a statement that you are doing under oath. So, as I said already, there is logic to their format and how they're questioning you. So let's continue and you'll see how it unravels. So I'm only going to give you the officer's questions. What is your true and complete name? Have you used or have you been known by any other name? When and where were you born? Of what country are you a citizen or a national of? Are you a citizen or national of any other country or countries? Next question by the CBP officer. Do you make any claim to United States citizenship? Have you ever been or are you currently a lawful permanent resident of the United States? What is your marital status? Do you have any immediate family members who are citizens, nationals, or lawful permanent residents of the United States? Today you are outbound from, and they'll tell you the airport, and they'll tell you where you're going, and they'll tell you your flight number, and they'll say, is this correct? Is this your final destination? What documents did you present to the primary officer for admission into the United States? So the primary officer is the officer who is looking at your passport and boarding ticket. Something has gone on there in the line of questions and they feel that you need to be questioned further. So now you're in the back room, so to speak, you're at this secondary inspection. So that's what he means or she means by the primary officer. Are these the documents you presented? and then they will display whether it's your passport, etc., to the United States Customs and Border Protection Officer for inspection today. Who are you traveling with today? Do you have an approved electronic system for travel authorization, ESTA? Who completed your ESTA application? CBP records reveal your ESTA application is valid until, and they'll give the date and the month, and they'll ask you, is that correct? What is the purpose of your trip to the United States today? What is it that you will be doing at this, whatever you're saying you're going to be doing, where you are? How long do you intend to stay in the United States? Are you in possession of a confirmed return ticket to depart to the United States? Just a tip here, you should never try to enter the United States in a one-way ticket. Not only will you probably be denied admission, you must always have a return ticket. The next question the officer continues to ask, when was your last entry into the United States? Next question, CBP systems reveal you were admitted through, and they'll give the date and they'll give the airport, because they have all the information. They'll ask, is this correct? How long did you stay in the United States on that entry? CBP systems reveal you were traveling with, and they'll name the person on your last entry. Is this correct? Where did you stay while you were in the United States on that entry? Who lives at that address? Did you stay at the person's residence from, and they'll give the dates that you said you entered under. Can you elaborate why you stayed in the United States until this date? What kind of business does your friend do? How long has your friend owned his business for? Is there a business address for this company? What kind of business exactly is it? How many employees work for your friend? When did you start working for your friend? Were you paid? How were you paid? Was this in US dollars? Can you elaborate what you mean when you say day-to-day operations? On your last entry, did you go to this place to work for the company? Information was found on an open source website, LinkedIn, that you were employed by, and the officer is now naming this same company. Can you elaborate how you became employed for this company? Have you ever filed US taxes? Do you have a social security number or an EIN that allows you to be employed in this company? Are there currently any petitions filed with the United States Citizenship and Immigration Services, USCIS, for you to immigrate to the United States? And just to add here, you probably have been there for hours. You've missed your connecting flights. Loved ones are not even able to, or permitted to speak to you. You're probably stressed out. Some of these officers can be rude, can be aggressive. You may be questioned by more than one officer. There may have been things said that upset you. I've even had people explain to me that they were denied a cup of water. The list goes on. So you're not answering these questions in a sit-down powwow where you're all friends having a cup of tea. That is not the circumstances in the background to you being asked these questions. You're being asked these questions in an interrogation manner. You're going to feel very stressed, very upset and fearful, and everything you are saying is used against you. And that's why I'm explaining to you in this manner that before it gets to this level, don't please think, oh, I've got away with something. My past hasn't caught up with me. That's not what goes on in immigration. So we're still going on with the questions. Are there any US visas filed on your behalf in the United States? Have you ever been arrested or convicted of a crime in the United States or abroad? Have you ever been refused entry or deported from any country? You are not a citizen of the United States. You are an applicant who has been found to be inadmissible pursuant to, and they'll list the reasons why you're pursuant, it's all in numbers and letters, of the Immigration and Nationality Act, so it's always 212 of the INA. You are not a bona fide traveller under the visa waiver program. Do you understand? You will be refused entry under the visa waiver program pursuant to Title 8 CF4 Section 217.4A1. You are no longer eligible to use or enter the United States under the visa waiver program. So just like that, this person now has lost their visa waiver. You must apply and obtain a US visa with a waiver. This officer is even saying you're going to need a waiver for future entries into the United States. Do you understand? You will need to obtain a valid US visa with a waiver to re-enter the United States on future visits and completely disclose today's events to US Citizenship and Immigration Services, USCIS. Do you understand? Do you have any questions, or is there anything else you would like to add to your statement? And then they will get you to sign the sworn statement. This sworn statement is now going to be populated on immigration system, so that when you go to the consulate, they will have a copy. In fact, sometimes clients will tell me that when they go up to the consulate for their interview, the officer behind the screen is waving the I-877 sworn statement in their face, letting them know, we have this, we've read it, we're going to deny your visa. So it's a very detailed line of questioning. And you are going to be set up in a way where you can't later come back and say, I didn't understand the question, because they're going to ask you the same question multiple types of ways, as you can hear from how I read out a typical line of questioning by an officer, because they're there to nail you. That's their job. They're protecting the US borders. They're dealing with lots of fraud. Something about you has triggered them not believing you. So they want to make sure that you are denied entry and that you can't get into the United States. And all hope is not lost. I mean, I deal with this all the time. I'm dealing with clients that have been denied entry, visas cancelled, visas revoked, huge problems for people. And with persistence and listen to my guidance, we do get approvals. So it's not that it's an end game. This isn't the point of this audio, doom and gloom. It's the purpose of this audio is to let you know the seriousness of secondary inspection, the seriousness of every time you speak to an immigration official, what you could be triggering. And if there are things in your past, they haven't gone away. So you thinking, well, I'll try and go in this time for the wedding or the party or whatever it is you need to go in for, and no one will have a problem with me. Sure, I haven't had a problem in years. You could be in for a surprise. It's to apprise you how serious the sworn statement can trigger and impact your immigration, and can impact it for years. You can be effectively denied entry and stuck outside for years before your situation can be remedied. And I always believe that if you come to me before you trigger these things, we have a far greater chance of not only getting you an approval, but doing it expeditiously, doing it in a quicker manner, versus having to slog this out and fight it with immigration for years. I'm just going to read out one of their last pages that you'll typically see on the sworn statement. And remember, this can be issued by CBP either when you are physically inside the United States requesting entry into the US, or if it's a pre-clearance. Certain countries permit pre-clearance, such as Ireland, Shannon and Dublin airports. The CBP officers there can also issue this I-877 before you even are permitted onto the flight. The last sentence the last page will normally read the following. I have read or have had read to me the foregoing statement, consisting of, and they'll tell you the number of pages. I state that the answers made therein by me are true and correct to the best of my knowledge and belief, and that this statement is a full, true and correct record of my interrogation. They even tell you the word interrogation, right? On the date indicated by the above named officer of the Department of Homeland Security. I have initialed each page of this statement and the corrections noted on page, if there are corrections to be made. And then you'll sign this again. So there is very little opportunity. I mean, it doesn't stop me from arguing, because sometimes there are mistakes and I do see that an officer has said something that is incorrect. But it's done, this sworn statement is done in a fashion that makes it very hard for you to retract what you have said, and that your words will be used against you. My advice would be, if you find yourself in a scenario with a secondary inspection interrogation, you should really think before you're speaking. Slow it down, take a deep breath, ask the officer to repeat the question. Regulate yourself internally. Don't just feel pressured. It doesn't matter if they're shouting and hollering at you. Let them. Take a deep breath, because once you say it, it's out. And it's very hard to retract it then. The other thing I would say is, at the end of the interrogation, you are free to request a withdrawal, that you don't wish to sign the statement. Now, in scenarios like this, I've come across where people have done this. Technically, they haven't signed the sworn statement. It doesn't mean that what has happened has gone away, but they haven't agreed to what has been said in this statement. Their signature is not on it. And I have noted in these cases where you also will have a fight on your hands, because immigration now at the consulate, for example, okay, you may not have said the most damning things because you haven't signed something and you've requested a withdrawal. It's not as damning as someone that is signing and blabbing and saying everything that they shouldn't be saying, because they're nervous and they feel that this is helping their case. And I do find that when you withdraw and refuse to sign, a consular officer is going to be reluctant into assisting you, because now they feel, well, you haven't signed. That doesn't mean it didn't happen. And you are still in a fight to get admission into the United States, to get a visa approved. But it's not as damning as someone that's saying all sorts of things and then signing it. So that is something that you consider. Remember, at the beginning of it, it says it's voluntary. So you're given the information voluntarily. You can also refuse to sign it voluntarily as well. And then I would also say, what should you do if a sworn statement has been issued? Number one thing, do not go to the consulate. You know, on the monopoly, do not go and collect. Don't go. Don't do it. Don't do it. You're doing yourself no favor. My advice would be, speak to me. Let me figure out what was said on the sworn statement. I go through it like with a fine-tooth comb, and I can come back and tell you what I feel the best game plan here is. But you should not be rocking up to a consulate anywhere in the world. I don't care what the story is. I don't care how aggrieved you feel. A lot of people do feel aggrieved. And I always say to people, you don't have a right to get into the United States. It's actually a privilege. And believe it or not, but your words have created this problem. It doesn't matter that you've never been arrested. It doesn't matter that you've never been convicted of a crime. It doesn't matter that the officer deprived you of this, that, and the other. There's something about you and your case that has warranted this questioning. So I would not be going to a US consulate expecting a consular officer to approve and issue you with a visa if you have been issued a sworn statement. I would say, speak to me, let's see what needs to be done and strategize, because by going to the consulate, you are probably going to get a denial. Let's say 90% of people that go get a denial. You're going to get a denial. That now is another denial against you, and you possibly could now be saying even more damning things to the consular officer, because a lot of people feel so aggrieved and so upset about what has gone on at the airport that they go up to the consulate and even blab even more. In fact, sometimes these secondary inspection interrogations can be so upsetting that people will tell me, Caro, this happened years ago and I've been so traumatized by it. This is the first time I've been able to talk about it, and they're talking to me about it for the first time. They're very upsetting situations. So with that in mind, the takeout should be from this: do not go up to the consulate if you have been issued an I-877 sworn statement. If there's anything in your past that you feel you got away with or you didn't get away with, you should, again, speak to me before you show up at an airport and CBP then starts questioning you, and before you know it, you're in secondary inspection and being asked to sign a sworn statement.